Participating in the City Council election forum. The Lima News is doing these forums with the City Council candidates in each ward. Yesterday we did the first ward race, and today we're doing the third race. I'll introduce the people that will be here. You know Dave Tranco, our managing editor, myself, Jim Crummell, and Craig Kelly, our reporter. Joining us shortly will be Doug Olson, our publisher. We'll be asking questions of you, but you can also ask questions of each other. We have a lot of ground to cover in an hour, so my apologies in advance if I have to say, hey, let's cut this off and move on to the next subject. We'll leave it the last 5 minutes for closing statements from both of you. With that, we'll go ahead and start. And Jesse, I thought I'd start with you. You're going up to your third term in council in 8 years, winning the first one by 5 votes and being uncontested in the second one. What have you learned in those 8 years on council?
Well, these last 8 years actually have been pretty amazing, very fast paced. I have learned that I must communicate with the citizens. I've been out and about, I speak with them, they tell me how they feel, and I had to come to a great understanding that we are there for the people, and I vote accordingly. When they speak to me and they tell me what's going on and how they feel about different legislation that is brought to us, I vote according to the way they like it. I have learned that I had to build relationships with area businesses, also be more inclusive of everyone. It's been a great learning experience. Legislation took a great priority when I first came on. They put me on the utilities committee, and I had to learn the inner workings of our water department and different things with public works and how the sewers came together. And it was just so much those first 4 years, but I had to keep an open mind and learn and vote accordingly. And I think with my experience that I have now, all the puzzle pieces have came together, and I'm ready to continue to lead for Third Ward.
Carla, as a newcomer in politics, what do you hope to bring to the City Council?
Well, my passion for advocacy and my ability to problem solve. Obviously, I think that I would kind of enter in like Mr. Lowe first did. There's a lot to learn, and it's been fun just even learning how to run for office. But the skills that I do have would be being able to research problems, being able to learn information, gather facts, and advocate for what's right and what's fair based on what people in the community need. Also, a sense of empathy. I don't know if that's a skill or more just a quality, but my husband would say that I'm empathetic to a fault. I feel other people's pain and their joy very, very personally, and I feel like advocating for my neighbors is essentially advocating for myself.
What made you decide to get into the race?
Well, I've always been an activist, and I was busy telling people, particularly after the last presidential election, that whining wasn't an option, that they had to pick a battle and get involved, that it was time for us to, as Americans, stop letting politics happen and just be a part of it, And I had sent out an email that I think I received from runforsomething.org, and I said, hey, and it was just encouraging citizens to actually run for office. And I said, hey, who's going to step up to the plate? And then I started getting responses going, why don't you? You should try this. And I'm very close with the neighbors, the people that I have on my block, and they came to me and suggested it. So I said, I can't tell other people to get involved and not be willing to when I'm asked.
Jesse, one of the things that has come up in the mayor's race several times is that certain members of council don't like to work with the mayor. And I think one of the fingers being pointed at, they haven't named names, but obviously one of the fingers are pointed at is yourself. I mean, if elected, where do we go from here?
once elected, I would pray that if Berger remains mayor, that he would have a more open mind. There's many times that we have requested to talk that we were just flat out told no. He says he has an open door policy. There's been 2 times that I can remember where we actually had a very decent conversation. But more so than not, we haven't. A lot of it is, I believe, when it comes to different legislation in the city, I go with what the people say. And it's not about Jesse's agenda. And I think, sometimes through media, individuals think that I have it out for Dave Berger. I don't hate Dave Berger. I don't dislike Dave Berger. I just think that Dave Berger's not a good mayor. And we've sat down and we've talked a couple of times, like I said, but we just disagree on too much. And if you look at my voting record, my percentage, especially when it comes to minorities in the city, when it comes to rights in the city, when it comes to business within the city, that's the only time that me and him really kind of have a conflict. If you look at my voting record, I'm pretty much, when it comes to the police department, what their needs is, I'm behind it 100%. Fire department, 100%. New ideas, we just did the streetscape project. When it comes to the underpasses and public works needing supplies and cars, trucks, whatever they need, I support stuff like that. I just, when it comes to Mayor Berger, if you do not agree, you just feel like you get the cold shoulder. And after a while of trying, or you get into an office with someone in his administration and they continuously promise you something, and years later you're not seeing it, but you get fed up, and then you have to go about things a different way. And I believe in politics, it's a give or take. You have to. You have to. And I think that I've done a lot more giving. I've requested things that still hasn't taken place within 8 years. And you get this rap that you don't want to work with them. I've waited patiently. I've asked again, I've asked several times, and then when you tell them, then all of a sudden, you're the bad guy. And I think that I get a bad rap. I think people that know me and who are around me, who know me for me and my character, I love to laugh, I love to have fun, I love my church, my people, and I just want people to get along. But at the same time, if you're in leadership and you're not listening to the people, that's not always a leader. You have to be able to listen, and I just feel that sometimes on council, he doesn't listen to certain councilmen.
Carla, you talked about advocacy. Could you go into that? What type of issues would you advocate? I mean, what are the big issues that you see?
The big issues that I see for Lima or for my ward?
Or the Lima?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed since I moved here is that I was really grateful that there were so many things available for younger children. I think that people that have families and want to live in Lima, it's a great place to start. My concern is that what happens once my son becomes a preteen, what happens once he becomes a teenager. I think that what we're doing is kind of failing to engage our youth in the community. There aren't enough programs like the one Mr. Lowe does with the High Octane Group. There need to be more arts programs. There need to be more programs for children to engage in the government, to engage with the local government, to feel invested in it, and more opportunities for apprenticeships, internships, trainings, because there are jobs available here. And for some reason, the people that are here aren't qualified or interested in the jobs that are available here. And I think that there's a disconnect where we're not hooking up our young people with the correct resources that are already available in the community. And I think that that's one thing that leads into the great problem right now, a lot of people see, is the opioid crisis. And it's not just Lima, it's Ohio, obviously. But for our community, we have to look at what's feeding into that? You know, is it, when I'm out canvassing, people are telling me, you know, I know that there are landlords renting to people that don't even live here. They're coming in from out of state, they're selling drugs for the weekend, and then they go back somewhere else. And I've had landlords come in, when I worked at the water department, and tell me, you know, I'm renting to this lady, I haven't seen her, she's been paying her rent for a year, but she never moved in. And I don't understand why people don't think that that's odd. Like, we need to work on this disconnect in our rental community because it is so high, the rental population. There's something that, and I'm a renter, so I believe that we have to work on the idea of a landlord registry for the sake of our neighborhoods and their upkeep and our property value, and just people feeling like they're part of a neighborhood and a community. So those are some, but yeah, I would say the youth in our neighborhoods and the landlord registry. Those are the things that I really would like to advocate for.
Can I add to this?
Sure.
Okay. As far as the youth, there's many programs in Lima. There's many programs through the YMCA, through the Bradfield Center, through the Lima Public Schools. Lima Public Schools does a fantastic job every season, especially with sports, okay? We have a magnet program over at South Junior High that is phenomenal. There's art programs being ran through them also. So there's things to do. The issue really isn't that Lima doesn't have anything to do for the youth. I would have to agree with you. It's when you turn 18, between that 18-24 range. Once you graduate, now what? We have to recruit these kids while they're in high school and say, listen, this is what you need to prepare for. This is what you need. What's happening is, and let's just be very blunt and honest here. We have a lot of households in Lima where dad is not present, okay? And when you don't have a man in the house to show structure, there's usually an issue with obedience. There's usually an issue with individuals feeling like I don't have to do this, or they can just quit whenever they choose to quit. I run a program where I teach individuals how to read, write, and play percussion, where they can earn scholarships later on in life, that can get them that next step. There's many different people doing that. Lima Striders is doing that. So honestly, the parents just need to seek and get involved. But we're also dealing in Lima with parents who were kids, who have had kids, and nobody's taught them what structure truly was. And we need to plant seeds of positivity in these houses with these kids. There's a lot. They just have to be involved. You have to get out there. You need to know. I think it would be very interesting, maybe even if the Lima News, was to write an article or put an ad in there and say, listen, here's everywhere you can go. This is the number just to contact. Get your kids involved. I know with our program, we had a lot of kids that came in that were considered the class clowns. These kids are straight A students now. They're honor roll students. You cannot be in our group without a C average. If you do come in there, we set you to the side. We talk with you. We work with you. We tutor you until you get up to where you need to be. And we got a saying: if you can't tap your books, you can't tap your drums. And we stand by that. These kids are doing phenomenal. But what me and Mr. Bradley have created is a constant for some of these youth in our city. They know on Tuesday we're going to be there. They know on Tuesday we're going to tell them the truth. They know on Tuesday we're going to be fair. They know we're going to be firm, and we're going to build them up. And we need more of that. I think the program is there. Now the city, as far as the city goes, we have money. Why they haven't built a youth community center, game rooms, teaching them life skills, I don't know. I don't know why our city doesn't have it. A Boys and Girls Club. The YMCA only does so much with funding, but I don't want to put it on the city entirely because, again, parents just need to step up and say, hey, you know what? I need to get my kid involved. I need to get them out there and do stuff. As far as she touched on the land bank registry, on the landlord registry. I'm in charge of that committee. I'm the chair for the Neighborhoods Concerns Committee. And the word that I'm getting from the landlords is This is incredible, and we're against it totally. Right now, as it stands, I'm against it. I don't believe that the administration gave us a proper guideline on how they were going to do things. For example, I will take the Bar Hotel. The Bar Hotel has many apartments in it. Does each individual apartment get that fine? Does each individual apartment have to be inspected, or does a whole building as a whole get inspected, and that's one fee? That's things we need to talk about. On October the 2nd at 6 p.m., I'm going to have a committee meeting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a committee together within that meeting with area landlords for it and against to get some pros and cons. But right now, as it stands, do we need a registry? I think we need a registry. Matter of fact, I know we need a registry, but only to the extent we need at least 2 or 3 different contacts from the landlords to get a hold of them. I don't think that we need to fine them or tax them in any other way. A lot of individuals in the city, they just flat out can't afford it. If they were a landlord, they're going to add it to their rent. Some are just making it. Some are in a system where they don't even have that extra 5 or 10. I mean, things are budgeted to the penny. They don't have it. So I think that we definitely need to create a list where individuals are known and how we can get a hold of them and hold them accountable. We know for a fact in Lima, there's some horrible landlords, but the rest that are so good and that I have spoken with should not have to pay the cost or the penalty for a few that are just not doing what they need to do.
For both of you, do you agree with the prospect of inspecting?
I do not. I think you're going to hurt individuals. You're going against people's rights. I wouldn't want you just to knock on my door, whether I agree to a time or not, and you come through my house and inspect my house. If you're a tenant, you have rights already. They're already on the book. If things aren't up to par, you put your rent or your fee in escrow, and you take them to court and you do the right thing until they get it up to par, the way you want your house to be or your apartment to be.
What's your thought on that, Carla?
I feel like we are assuming that landlords will do right by our neighborhoods and by our citizens, when often they don't live in the community that we're talking about, and they're not even willing to live in the community that we're talking about. I think that we can't. I talk to the landlords too, and it's very difficult because when I worked at the water department, I asked the people that I feel are conscientious, that I feel I don't hear a lot of their tenants coming in and complaining about them, like, okay, what do you think about this? And everybody is so against it. But if you are maintaining a property and you wouldn't live in it, why would you let somebody else live in it? If you are willing to rent to someone that you don't want to live next to, why do you want me to live next to them? I feel like the cost of doing business is making sure that you provide a safe, well-kept place. And I don't think that it's just landlord's responsibility. I mean, we have tenants that do not act accordingly or whatever, but just throwing out the idea is unacceptable. Like you said, we need a registry, but it's going to take more than just contact information, especially when you've got people that don't even live in the city, that don't even live in the state. We've got landlords that live in Hawaii, that live in Florida. And I'm supposed to believe that they're invested in my Lima community. What do we have in place? And if we don't have anything in place, then we need to look at that registry, research it. You don't throw a Band-Aid, you don't throw it out there, next week and say it's approved. You look at what's worked in other communities and tailor it to what Lima needs. I need people to actually, paint their homes or to fix the sidewalks, and I'm sorry, but they should be willing to do that. And if they are doing that, then they're not getting fined. Fines are penalties. If you're maintaining your property, you're not getting penalized.
This right here, though, and so that we have a clear understanding, this would, that $25, $75 fee would come regardless if you was taking care of it or not. My thing is, if you're not maintaining your property, yes, there should be some stipulations. And I'm gonna backtrack on something else too. We have landlords that live out of town who do a fantastic job in this city. They come here, they check. We have individuals in this city that have land here and land in other cities, and they're doing fine. We have a few landlords, and I want to tell you, downtown, we know who they are. They know who they are, who just are not doing it. They have individuals on a month-to-month basis. They know that they only make so much money. They don't care. Those are the individuals that need targeted. I don't think that everybody should pay the cost for a few. Have a backbone, say who they are, let code enforcement deal with who they are, and go after them. And that's pretty much the bottom line with me.
Do you think code enforcement has the muscle it needs to be able to actually deal with some of these problems?
I'm glad you asked that. I'm going to tell you, since I've been on council, even under Ms. Odom and with Ms. Crotty now, I have probably been the most vocal of all the councilmen on getting help. I have said 1,000 times, code enforcement needs help. We have the money to go and go through a temporary service and get help from, and I think that is just utterly ridiculous. My voting record would tell you that I vote no every single time when it comes to a temp service. We'll go out and pay above and beyond what the individual is worth so that we don't have to do benefits. We'll cut back a couple dollars, put them in there. You're going to have an individual that comes to work every day, knows without a shadow of a doubt that they have a job to go to, and that difference that we would have paid the temp service, there's the fringes. It's super simple. We have young college students that come in during the summer who clean downtown. You know, say, hey, look, we can change the charter anytime as council. We have that power to do so. The couple times that I've asked for charter changes, the first thing that came out of their mouth was, it's going to cost us $10,000 to do this and $10,000 to do that. We spend that on nothing every week. It's priorities, and I think this is where this goes back to the question earlier, why individuals feel that I don't get along with the administration. It's not about that. It's right or wrong. When you know that there's a need, handle it, pay for it, not go and pay for extra. We got a no, just to stay on course with the landlord. I could go on with that, but to stay on course with the landlords, listen, we know who they are. We need to target those that are not doing right. Okay, we can have a form as simple as a registry and number. Okay, this is what's going to happen if you get reported. This is what's going to happen if you were reported falsely. Okay, because there's a lot of tenants who get behind on rent, who want to say the landlord's not doing stuff, or this is broke or that is broke, and they have destroyed houses. I've been in one of them. Okay, they have destroyed houses and they put it on the landlord and say, I'm not giving you nothing. But there's rules already in place. Again, you can put your money in escrow, and when that landlord gets his stuff together or her stuff together, they can come in there and fix it up, and then they'll receive their payment.
Carla, your thoughts on code enforcement?
Code enforcement, yes, they definitely need more teeth, more muscle, more help. I'd like to backtrack just a little bit. When it comes to the registry, I think that also we kind of look at this as like a punitive thing. When I'm researching registries that work in other places, there are benefits to the good landlords that he's talking about, and we do have some that actually maintain the property as if, you know, I know one in particular who his motto is, if I wouldn't live in it, you're not going to live in it. Okay, that's the kind of thing where we should be rewarding them with like group discount rates, or, you know, certifications as good landlords, so that when tenants are looking, because some of us are responsible tenants, some of us want to find a good landlord. You know, why doesn't that registry also include like recommendations for some of those that are stellar? You know, we can make this registry what our community needs. Maybe it doesn't need a $75 fee once a year or whatever for an inspection. Let's see what we do need and tailor it that way. And that might mean that we need more people on code enforcement taking care of some of the, and because some of our bad landlords are the ones that have the most properties. And that's what's been so problematic is that, and then they say things like, well, you know, if we do this, then we'll have to raise the rents. Actually, if you're just maintaining your properties the way you should, then that's the cost of business, and you don't necessarily need to raise your rents. But, and I think that we would see, if we had more people, more power in code enforcement, then maybe some of those larger landlords that we know are not maintaining their properties and don't care to maintain their properties would maybe just stop doing business. Either fix their properties or stop doing business here, because we don't need them here.
Well, let's move on to crime. Can you tell me about your perception of crime? Do you think crime has been on the rise in the city, or has it been decreasing? We'll start with you, Carla.
Okay. In case people don't know, I'm a transplant. I moved here about 4 years ago. So, to be honest, it's a statistical thing that I'm not sure my opinion changes whether or not it's actually on the rise. And so I can see that I don't feel like I've been in the community long enough to honestly say, yes, crime has risen dramatically or decreased drastically. I just feel that as a council member or as a community member, if crime is on the rise, then it's our job to help it decrease. Or if it's actually decreased, then it's our job to work on keeping it low.
When it comes to crime in this city, through council, we have the right to pass legislation that will help our officers. I have supported, like I said earlier, I have supported the police department and the fire department, detectives, on whatever they needed, whatever tools they need. I think that they need to have access to it. I am a big advocate for the body cameras. With the body cameras comes the responsibility of turning the camera on, okay, and footage, and being able to see the footage when you request the footage. That needs to be worked on. There's been a couple incidences that I know a couple days later we had access to it, but I don't know if it was just a matter of I wanted it a little bit quicker or they was moving a little bit slow. But the majority of the individuals that I speak with that work at the LPD are really good people. I've had to use them on a personal level. I had to use them in business, and I've had to use them as a councilman. Crime in this city, and I've talked to, I think I got a pretty good relationship with a solid 7 officers, a solid relationship where I can talk about anything. But the crime in the city has not went down, by no means. We have break-ins all the time. We have break-ins that don't get reported because people are scared of retaliation. We have calls that go out where sometimes there's a difference between a service call and
Emergency.
an emergency, yes. Sometimes people go out, if you don't ask for a service call number, it doesn't get written. Individuals that are making phone calls, letting the police know, hey, this is what's going on. If you don't ask for a service call number, you don't know of it. So I'm not saying that they're liars. What I'm saying is that I believe that there's a few times that reports aren't getting put in the way that they need to be put in. Now, major crime, and I'm talking about killings, major crime, it doesn't matter if it's one individual that dies senselessly or 20, it's still too much. We have had the opportunity to stop a few times, a few killings in this city. One, being downtown Lima. My ward has the most bars of any ward in the city. And there's going to be trouble anytime anybody gets to drinking and they feel they have liquid courage in them and they can do and say as they want to do. But I asked immediately for their license to be pulled of one particular bar, and they didn't do it. And I was actually hushed and said, we'll take care of it. At that time, our law director had legislation prepared and ready to go before I even opened my mouth. And I thought it was amazing. I praised him for it. I was appreciative of it. but it got stopped in pre-council. We'll handle it. Well, a year later, almost to the date, we got another death, and we have another brother that we gotta go bury, another youth in this community. And it's sad. We could have stopped that. If I could change anything on council, I would have pushed harder. I would have pushed harder. Lima's too small where families aren't connected. I know the families, I know both families, and it was senseless, and it was stupid. And I think that we as council, we need to have a little more backbone, not be so passive when it comes to crime. The crime rate in the city, what is reported and what I personally see, is on two different levels. It's just on two different levels. And I think you can read your newspaper. You guys know, you see the police calls that happen. Just a week ago, it was like 4 or 5 break-ins in the same column. There was a robbery, there was 2 or 3 domestic violences. And I mean, it took that whole right side of the paper from the top to the bottom. And that was one night. These officers are stressed out. We need more. We need more. We need more in the streets. People come to me all the time and they ask about how I feel about the COPs. And personally, I think they should be on the street. We need them on the beat instead of in a box. We need them not only physically walking the streets or cruising the streets, but they need to be on doors knocking. I think individuals are nervous or scared or think that neighbors might retaliate against them if they speak to them when they come to the house. But it is necessary. I think the officers should be in plain clothes. I think we should be smart about that, especially in certain neighborhoods. They should be in plain clothes, walk up, be able to talk to you at any given time. That's pinpoint policing. When I stepped out with drugs bring death, what we did was we went out in south side of Lima and we did surveys and we went door to door. And I took those surveys and I brought them back to Chief Garlock at the time. And when Chief Garlock seen them, he said, this is amazing. I said, this is what they're feeling. And also Dave Adams was on council at the time and he met with us. And he was like, I had no idea. I said, this is how people truly feel. Until we go to them and knock on the door, we're not gonna know. They're not gonna know. Not to take time away from Ms. Carla, but even with drugs bring death, we sat down with them, like we have coffee with a cop now. We had businesses bringing food out. And once people start to eat, they get to talking. And we built a fellowship where I could report back and let individuals know, look, this is what's going on in this neighborhood. This is how this block feels. That same thing needs to happen. And it's been a couple of times where I needed to go to the COP, and I do have 2 of their numbers, personal numbers. But when I went to go to the COP, they wasn't there due to calls.
Is it due to calls, or are they actually out knocking?
No, they was due to calls.
Okay.
It was due to calls. And they needed backup, and they did accordingly what they was told.
So you're an advocate of pinpoint policing?
I'm an advocate of pinpoint policing, but I think it needs to be out on the beat. I don't think sitting in an office is getting it done.
There's been talk of a gang problem in Lima. Do you believe there is a gang problem or juvenile gang problem?
I just think we got some bad kids that don't have no direction. I don't even call it a gang. We got some kids around here, again, I won't say lack of parenting, but lack of good parenting. We need to provide them with some more things to do. Like we were speaking earlier, they need to know what outlets there are for them to get rid of that energy. There is no reason that Lima, a city this size, doesn't have a youth club, a youth building, a Boys and Girls Club. There's no reason.
Isn't that what the Bradfield Center kind of
The
is?
Bradfield does it to a degree, but again, it comes down to funding too. Okay, now the city, we got community development block grant money that they wasn't even willing to give to the Bradfield 3 years ago. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed and said, give them a chance. And now they have done superb. They've done superb to the point this year, I even advocated to give them an additional $20,000, okay, to pool the funds from the administration. The administration has taken almost 20% of the community development block grants. That's ridiculous. That should be coming out of the general fund, period. This money is to build the neighborhoods. Just like both of us was talking about the sidewalks, the house and the streets. When people go out and see greatness, they feel better. There's such a sense of hopelessness in some spots of the city that it's ridiculous, and I just want to remove that cloud. We have the funds to do it. We just have not done it. And me standing alone, I feel like the Lone Ranger some Mondays, and me standing alone is not going to do it. We need individuals to get out, talk with their councilman, elect, if they're not doing their job, if it's me and I'm not doing my job, change it. But we need to start holding the city councilman accountable, and not so much, everybody wants to say part of the good old boy system or a yes man. Just do what's right, and that's it.
I'd like to go back and address the COP stations. I love the idea that we are interested in community policing here. I would agree that they should not be spending all the time inside of the building. That part of the problem is that people have an inherent distrust of officers. And so you see a lot of people not willing to work with the officers, but community policing means that we as the community are also helping those officers. And in order to do that, we need to build relationships with them. I grew up in Canton and Cleveland not really feeling that I could trust law enforcement, that sometimes I was targeted because of my race or my age or whatever. And so I had a really huge distrust, and then my brother became a sheriff's deputy for Summit County, and I was forced to look at it from a different perspective. And not everybody has that. Not everybody has a brother or a sister that's in law enforcement to tell them, look, this is what I'm dealing with every day. This is why this is so hard. This is why I maybe react the way I do. And I think that the job of these substations is to bring the community into them, to make us feel comfortable with the officers, to make sure that when I spoke with Chief Martin, I felt he said to me that he thought that because there was such a sense, in this area and nationwide where we feel targeted sometimes by police as opposed to helped by them, that it's, the responsibility now of a good local police department to engender trust, to make themselves respectable. And I think that it's a two-way street, that the community has to start trying to work with the police officers, that the police officers have to start getting to know the citizens. They have to build relationships with us so that we feel like they are a part of our community and not just out to get us.
Let's move on to economic
So if
development.
I could jump in real quick
Sure.
there. Obviously, one of the issues that people often bring up with the police department is it doesn't look like the city in terms of the racial mix in it.
Mm-hmm.
What can be done about that? What would you as a city council member be able to do to help fix that gap?
Well, the thing is we've, like you said, it doesn't look like the city. So we've got the resources, our citizens. What we need to be doing is encouraging those people that are already in the community to know more about the police department, become interested in becoming officers and get the proper training and guiding them through that. When I adjuncted out at Rhodes, they would have police academy classes, and you might see one black face, and that is unacceptable. I mean, it's just unacceptable. Why aren't we leading more of our youth towards that direction? We don't need people that aren't in the community or part of the community being our police. We need to encourage our youth to actually take on those positions.
Just kidding.
We have many, many minorities who take the test, who actually pass, and they're still not getting hired, period. We got a civil service board we got some fantastic people on our civil service board right now, okay? I do not feel that our administration respects our civil service board whatsoever. I think that they always find a way around when it comes to hiring. We had a secretary issue not too long ago where an individual took the test 3 or 4 times, still couldn't pass it, and they made a way to hire her anyway. Okay, we have officers who have taken the test, still don't get hired. I don't know what it's going to take. I can't give you a specific number. I do know that individuals have taken it, and I do know that there was also some individuals that they sent down for training who just failed the training. Okay, they don't know that that's going to happen. Individuals that have taken the test and passed, and I want to say this too first before we go any further. Minority is female and anything other than white. Okay, male, Caucasian male, and people get that messed up. I'm not just speaking about blacks, okay? They have taken the test, they have passed the test, and they didn't make it in. Same with our fire department, where I know that individuals were in the top 10, and they got passed over. So I don't know what it's going to take. I know that when the civil service gets done with their interviews, the civil service brings a list of 10 back and says, here's your candidates, and it's up to the administration to pick from there. That's who you need to be questioning. And individuals are getting to the point where, well, why try? They're not going to hire us anyway. And as an ambassador for the city, it's hard to say anything different. It's very hard to say anything different.
When I spoke
We
with
have-
Chief Martin, he told me that people were not passing the test. But you know of specific people that did?
That's what he told you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm telling you that there's specific people that passed, even with fire. We just had an incident where the last debate where the mayor spoke where he jumped down to number 19. Well, we've had firefighters that were minorities, misspoke. We have had individuals that have taken the test as minorities who were in that top 20, and they didn't make an exception at that point. I'm not asking them to. I truly, truly believe, before I came on the council, it was a rule of 3, and the administration was firm on it. And I know there were some councilmen who did everything they could to expand it to 10, and now all of a sudden, it's a great idea to open it up all the way. Now listen, I'm going to use this analogy. If you have a can of yellow number 2 pencils, and there's 100 of them, and one black fat kindergarten pen, and you drop them all in the can, what's your odds of pulling that one black pencil out? It's going to be very difficult. Just because you open it up just means you just got more that you feel is taking the test and that we're not. When individuals of color, minorities are passing this test, they're not getting hired. And to sit and say that we need to open it up because they're not in our top 10%, none of us are stupid. None of us are ignorant. We're just as smart. We do just as well. And it kind of burns me up when I hear him say that. Well, we need to open it up 10 because this gentleman scored a 70-something, and we need to give him an opportunity because he's not a good test taker. Well, me personally, I want an individual that can comprehend a test. Okay, I wasn't a good test taker in school. So what did that mean? That mean I had to study that much harder. My mom would sit with a belt lassoed on the kitchen table, and threaten me. She'd take my skin off if I didn't get this lesson right. And I would study my heart out, and I would get in there, and I still would make a C or lower. I know there's bad test takers, but you had to constantly keep studying. And this isn't a one-time deal. The other part of this puzzle, in defense of administration, our secretary for city council got very sick. Our secretary for civil service got very sick, and it threw a lot of things off. This last year was a very unexceptional year, but at the same time, legally, there was things that we had to do. And I apologize to the entire city that it took so long. Those individuals didn't have time to wait another 9, 10 months before they get hired. They needed to put food on their family's table. I understand that. but we ran into a roadblock that the city had never experienced before. So we had to wait. And in their defense, I will say that. But the Civil Service Board that we got right now is doing their best. They work, they communicate very, very well. Ms. Roby and Mr. Carpenter are excellent individuals who constantly let us know what's going on. So their job is being done.
No, I agree with the analogy, it was good. But I can speak from my experience with the civil service test, because I was employed by the city for 2 years in the water department. I also get upset when people act like Black people can't pass this test or women can't. Minorities have an issue with the civil service test. My experience was positive because I was in a community that was new to me. I didn't have connections. I didn't know anybody in administration to get me a job. When I finished that test, I had the highest score. 154 people took the test. I'm fortunate that I am a good test taker. After the second layer where I had my civil service interview, I was informed that I was number 1 on the list. I didn't really even understand what that meant. But what it meant was that when I sat down for my interview, even though I was thinking, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen because I have no connections here, I got the job. I wasn't passed over. This Black woman who didn't know anybody, through this whole civil service process, was able to get the job. And so it was a positive experience for me. The only thing that I felt, I don't know if it's different for civil service for police or for fire, for the fire department, but there was no study guide. A lot of communities will make civil service study guides available to people. I was studying things that had nothing to do with the test, and so were many other people that sat down for that test. And that's the thing that I would say is lacking, is properly preparing people, because if you can study for it and you can learn it, then you don't need to magically have it already in your head. Anybody who's capable of studying and learning, should be allowed to have that advantage and then take the test.
Kind of getting here close to the end, I would like to talk a little bit about economic development. Would you describe Lima as a business-friendly city? Why or why not? Carla, what do you?
Right now, I think that it is. Just because I've seen so many businesses come in, even in the short time that I've been here, and I've also seen entrepreneurs where people in the community are starting their own businesses. So they must feel like this is a good place to own and operate a business. I have to admit that I'm not quite sure about, I've worked with the downtown businesses, but I haven't heard a lot of complaints. So I can't say that they feel that they are in a hostile environment. There might be complaints out there, but I have not heard them.
I think business is coming along here in Lima. I'm not going to say it's fantastic. I did get a lot of, once businesses get up and running, I think that they're doing fairly well. The gripe that I hear a lot is the process of doing so. Permits, inspections, getting the word out that they're even there. And not just in Third Ward. I mean, Third Ward is the area everybody wants to talk about, especially with downtown. We got all these new businesses coming in, this, that, and the other. But throughout the city, they do not get the support that they are asking for. A lot of them have told me, with big business coming in, a lot of individuals are asking for tax breaks, water breaks. We've had companies leave Lima, was looking at Lima and left Lima, right outside our city. We got Cairo, we had Nestle, we got, it's a few of them out there that should have been right here in Lima. We were stingy with water. So I think that we need to evaluate our process a little bit better. I know when it comes to a couple individuals in particular, when I questioned how fast they were doing things, the next thing I know, I was getting sued by the city because they thought that I was coming at him because of age, and that wasn't what it was. I just flat out asked, how old is the gentleman? You know, technology is changing every single minute. You know, when you go into an office and you see Post-it notes all over the desk, and the laptop that looks like it got 2 inches of dust on it, that's a problem. People need to know what's going on, and it wasn't happening. So with the downtown businesses in particular, I think there's some pretty smart individuals down there that persevere and do what they need to do to make sure the business is successful. I know with mine, I purchased my building in December of 1 year, and I did not get my final permit until May of the following year. That's ridiculous. And it was a matter of scheduling too. And there wasn't that much being built during the winter months. So I didn't complain. And I'm not really complaining now, but I'm just telling you a fact that it took a little bit longer than what I feel it should have took. Business in this city would boom if our administration moved just a little bit. I ain't gonna say a little bit, a lot faster. They need to move a little bit faster. We need to be standing outside with welcome arms constantly. I don't think that's happening. We use water as our main resource to attract. It's kind of hard to do that when, if you go back to the crime, they could pull the crime stats up and see that. If people don't feel like they're going to be safe here, they're not going to bring their business here. We are a community that has great institutes of education, which you think would be great. This should be a nucleus for anybody that would want to come here. With the colleges expanding the way they are, city schools, we've just seen their grade card move up a little bit better. There's some positive that's happening, but when it comes down to getting your permit and you gotta wait forever or the inspector to show up, that's not good.
What is your position on allowing the processing and dispensing of medical marijuana?
I'm Mr. Drugs Brain Deaf. My answer is no. My answer is no. There's too many other options. I personally just got done dealing with, an individual came to me and he told me, well, I got cancer and I hurt and this, that, and the other. I understand it. I've had family members go through it. It hit home personally with me, and it was nice where you just watch an individual, shaking in pain and it hurts. But there is other medicine out there. There is other medicine. I think it's going to be a gateway. I think that there is individuals here in this town that will use it and just do things that they're not supposed to do. I don't know that everybody that has a store is actually going to see a prescription. Okay, that's the nicest way I can say it.
What's your position, Carla?
I've traditionally been for medical marijuana, especially in a community right now where you see, first of all, marijuana is already here.
Being here.
People, drugs are here. People are using them. But when you hear from the hospitals or from police that you've got issues now where people just thought they were smoking weed, but it's laced. Dispensaries, medical dispensaries aren't going to give you marijuana laced with heroin. So I feel like it would kind of help maybe even clean up what people are taking. And I have, my ex-father-in-law was the kind of guy that wouldn't even take an aspirin. He self-treated his diabetes for 20 years. But when he finally, he succumbed to bone cancer, and it took a very strong, powerful man and put him in a chair, and he couldn't move and he couldn't eat, and there was a lot of pain. And it was the one time, he looked at his son, he's like, okay, I need you to give me something. And the marijuana is what relieved him. I think that it's wrong to deny people that. Addiction is a disease in itself. I'm not so sure that opening up medical marijuana would magically make people addicts, or not having it would keep them from being addicts. Addiction is an issue where you have a hole in your life and you're going to find something to fill that hole. you know, whether or not I supply you with medical grade marijuana or not. So I don't see it so much as a gateway. I see it as a way that we could possibly save some lives, ease some comfort. We already prescribe opioids, and look where that got us. And it also has the potential to bring in a tremendous amount of tax revenue that the city could really use.
Any other questions, or we'll wrap up, or give each a few minutes there to close the session. Jesse,
Go
go ahead.
She's the lady, she go first.
Oh. Well, I'm Carla Thompson. I'm running for Ward 3 City Council. I'd like Mr. Lowe to know that he is no longer the Lone Ranger, that there are people in the community that want to also fight for our ward and to help make Lima a better place. What I do, what I'm good at, is making those connections, helping those people feel more invested and become part of the community and find the resources that they need to actually improve their lives, to make changes for their children, to make changes in the local government. No matter what the outcome is, I'll continue that fight.
First of all, I want to thank Lima News for having us here today. I appreciate that. A lot of individuals wouldn't have heard our voice if it wasn't for you guys today. We haven't had no debates. We didn't even have a primary.
Right.
But I just want to thank you. For those that don't know me, my name is Jesse James Lowe II. I've been on council. This is my 8th year. It's been a fun ride. It's been a very educational ride. I've been able to build relationships not only within the city, but with county officials, through businesses, and with our local chamber and different service clubs in the city. This position has taught me a lot, but the one thing that has taught me the most is fairness. And we have to fight for the people. I've been doing it for a long time. There's not a night that doesn't go by. I'm in my ward every day. I ride my ward, I ask questions, I talk with individuals. Through legislation, I've been able to help the city in different ways. If you notice when you come into Lima, you got new lighting systems, LED lighting. You got the streetscape project. We are currently working on the grade separation through legislation. When it comes to the police, also getting them their cameras. Fire department for supplying them with the tools that they need, ambulances, also the life support kits. We've done a lot as a whole, as a council, but I've done a lot individual. I'm not going to be that councilman that you see all the time in a suit and a tie. I tell people all the time, you never go into a construction work site and see anybody out there working with a suit on. They got on regular clothes like everybody else, and they're in the fight, and that's what I do. I'm very approachable. I will listen. If you speak to anybody in the 3rd Ward, they will let you know. Not only will I contact them, but I will do a follow-up and make sure they was pleased. And if there's anything that they need or they weren't satisfied, I get back with them and I make sure that it happens. I fight for my people. I fight for what's right. I fight for the city of Lima. And I'm asking for your support once again this year. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.